All right, guys, we're live. So for tonight's live stream, I'm gonna try and focus on the ketogenic diet. I wanted to look at an article that popped up on the Google feed, and it was about the ketogenic diet, which surprised me because, I mean, it was very popular years ago. Not many people really talk about the ketogenic diet that much anymore. I know when you're Googling and researching things, sometimes they'll pop relevant articles, but I haven't really spoken or, Googled or thought much about the ketogenic diet lately. Well, that's not true. I have this last year was very inconsistent. Weight popped up to about 25 pounds over the year. Wasn't eating bad, still relatively low carb, but still very, very inconsistent. So I haven't been this year. I mean, prior to that, working in healthcare, stupid pandemic and stuff like that, very busy. And, just not talking about keto. And plus, I increased, my weight by 25 pounds. So I figured I'd shut up about the ketogenic diet until I got back on track. So I'm back on the ketogenic diet, started around January, not extremely strict with it. Well, pretty strict, pretty darn strict, but since January, I mean, there's been probably 10 times that I was in social gatherings and stuff like that, indulged a little bit. Intermittent fasting. I know if you look back at some of my videos, if I did the carnivore diet, which I don't want to get into too much. I want to stick to the ketogenic diet. So anyways, I'm 12 pounds down. When I first did the ketogenic diet, I was fasting. I was doing some prolonged fasts too, like very, very often 2, 3. I think I did even 5. So I'm just doing more like one meal a day. That's usually when I'm hungry, and it often is one meal a day. The large meal that I seem to be making staple is just basically I'll buy ground beef. I'll make beef patties. I'm busy. I'm on the run. We got like teenagers. We're not sitting down as much to have like family meals and stuff. Everyone's gone somewhere, doing something, driving somewhere. So we often just, kind of eat basic stuff like eggs and stuff like that. So I've been eating a lot of eggs. I've been eating a lot of beef, whether it's ground beef or steaks and stuff like that. So, basically any animal food I eat. I know that if you look at the traditional ketogenic diet, it has like a whole macronutrient breakdown. I don't really agree with that. When I at this point, I don't count anything. I would never tell anybody to try and attain certain amount of fat. Or what I do is eat animal food as much as you want, any kind of animal food, and have vegetables on the side. I wouldn't go for starchy vegetables. I would go for non-starchy vegetables. You can have a little bit of fruit. You can have berries. I like the berries. And what else? You can have almonds also. I mean, technically, you could have bread if you would keep it with the traditional ketogenic diet to 20 grams. I think that a low carb diet, that isn't as defined in its macronutrients, but 100 grams of carbs. Most people, even sedentary people, if they're limiting their carbohydrates to about 100 grams, will probably do very well also. So if I say eat ketogenically, that incorporates all animal foods. And then after, it avoids rice, grain, pasta, legumes, anything in the middle section. And you're also, again, of course, going to avoid seed oils. So I would say, you know, I'm going to talk where I am with the ketogenic diet. Like I said, if you look at my older videos, you know, I was doing it by the book because I was learning, and it worked very, very well. Right now I say eat ketogenically, and that's why, like, I call it keto carnivore, because if you're eating the animal food and you have a side dish of vegetables, it's called keto. If you don't have vegetables that day, it's a carnivore meal. So, you know, so if you're eating animal food to get the protein and fat, it's not going to be that 70% of fat that the traditional ketogenic diet states. Well, first of all, you're eating to satiety, so you'll eat bigger meals, sometimes smaller meals. Your meal sizes will vary. You might be eating a fattier cut of steak, so there'll be a little bit more fat there. In the ketogenic diet, there'd be stuff like, you know, making fat bombs, these recipes, putting coconut oil in your coffee and stuff like that. There was a lot of fat, and I don't even think that there's a problem with doing that. I just think that it's more natural just to eat animal food, because if you're sticking mostly to that, it is ketogenic. It will induce ketosis. And when there's more people on, now I'm just kind of rambling, waiting till we get, you know, a few more people, then I can explain more the traditional, and then after, you know, go from there and speak with the little adjustments that I've learned over four to five years of doing this. I'm on my way up to the ridge. Give me a half hour. Yeah, no problem. All right, great. Feel free. You can come on too. I can post a link. You can come and say hi, bitch face. I believe bitch face. I'm not sure. Is she from Garland Farms channel? I'm not sure. I think so. I think I've seen her on the Garland Farms channel. All right, we're waiting for you, Bitface. Bitchface. Maybe we can, while we're waiting, go see Resting Bitchface's YouTube channel. See if she has anything, and encourage her. Resting. Let me see here. I wonder if that's her YouTube channel. I'm trying to find it. She can post a link when she gets here. Resting Bitchface channel. Is this her channel? Not sure. Here. Present. Hey, Darla Lama. Thanks for joining. She's the... Hey, where's your wrench? I thought the wrench usually shows up. Now, without the wrench, I can't call you wench master. No, I don't think that this is it. So anyways, I wanted to try and encourage her, but I cannot find it. Hey, Margaret. We're at 6 people. Maybe show you some of my older videos for people that might be interested in the ketogenic diet. I don't mind if the conversation goes off, which it usually does, but now's the time if you have any comments or questions about the ketogenic diet, please ask them. If you have a ketogenic story about your weight loss towards the end of the stream, hopefully, if time permits, we'll be able to get you guys on here and talk. So let me go over here. All right, we're 8 people. That's pretty good. All right, shameless plugging of my videos. So, as you know, the vegan debate saga with Garland Farms. There's some response videos here. The latest one, this is a really good one with Bruce Seasall, kind of snooping on his channel. He had a really nice compilation of some very convincing unidentified flying objects or aerial phenomena. All right, so let's go down to the oldest ones here. My older ones, especially that I was learning, and I this was when there was like tons of huge ketogenic diet channels and stuff like that. I felt like I had to justify pretty much everything. So I had a lot of visuals up. This was the second one that I did. So if you just want to hey everyone, and the basics of the ketogenic diet, you can look at this video that I did 4 years ago. So obviously that makes sense. 4 years ago, I had lost all the weight. So I started keto 5 years ago. So I did 4 straight years of, and like I said, if I did 4 straight years of keto, I am not talking about some magical, I maintained ketosis and I checked my ketone levels, and for 365 days times 4 years, I never touched a carb. I was in ketosis the whole, that's not the point. No, probably, definitely not. But during the weight loss period, you can easily go a year without popping out of ketosis. Personally, I'm sure I was like almost constantly in ketosis for 4 years, popping in and out very briefly. I'd like to see some research that says that prolonged ketosis can be detrimental. JD's, being he has a history of strength and conditioning, and he was talking about glycogen storage and being able to be competitive, and I don't deny that. There are also modified ketogenic plans for athletes to carb up after training to replenish fully glycogen stores and things like that. Like I said, at the start, I was very religious and dogmatic about it because I was learning, and I really was strict for a while because I was scared of rebounding. And even criticisms about the ketogenic diet would say it's only water loss. It's like, well, you know what, I maintained 55 pounds of water loss for like a couple of years, kind of thing. So this is a good one to look at. Like I said, this is not like a PowerPoint presentation that is perhaps very organized in how I'm presenting the ketogenic diet. I might be a little bit all over the place, but it's a live stream and I'm just, blabbing about whatever I want, however I want. But this is a good one. If you've never heard of the ketogenic diet, this is a good video.
Welcome to my channel. Today I want to give a rundown of what exactly the ketogenic diet is. The current recommendation is that we eat 50% of our...
So it's really, I'm really proud of actually these old, I think I actually put way more effort into the older ones than most of the newer ones. So I might be wrong on things. I'm not perfect. In fact, there's some things that I wasn't wrong on, in my opinion, but I've changed my opinion a bit. That's normal. But I'm still a large advocate of a very low carb diet. That carbs, 300 grams is ridiculous. Me personally, I don't do well trying to incorporate consistently carbohydrates. I put on a lot of weight. I'm on some medication that actually can cause metabolic issues. So that's another thing that pushes me towards the ketogenic diet, because I can control the metabolic disturbances and the weight gain that comes with some of the medications that I have no choice but to take. So I go through studies. Here's another cool one: World Health Organization data for cardiovascular death rates and cholesterol in males. So you can see the cholesterol over here. As it increases, okay, then you should start seeing a very, very good association. So cholesterol starts going up, and you start seeing this line create an increase here to say, well, look, as you start going up on cholesterol, cardiovascular death rates increase. And that's not true. So you can see all over the place, right? So you have you have people that have very high here, and this whole cluster here, very high cholesterol and very low death rates. Before we, what I want to say about nutritional science is that I hate it. It's all a crock of crap. These things are epidemiological studies. These things are statistics and food questionnaires. The variables, there's just so many variables that you cannot control. People are not being locked in. 10,000 people, on one side with the standard American diet, 10,000 people, let's say, that are vegan, and we're going to lock them in an institution like prisoners. We're going to make sure that they're not doing drugs, that nothing else, no other variables. We can't do that. That doesn't happen. So it's very, very vague, in my opinion. Not to mention that there's just as many studies saying the opposite than the other one. So, you'll have vegans are obsessed with the science because they look for these studies. And by looking at these studies, they're trying to justify, and as if like, here, we got a few published studies. They don't prove causation. Yeah, there's full of variables, but look, it's much healthier. No, I'm going to look at an article soon about the ketogenic diet that says that it's very unhealthy. Although I have a book this big with citations of the ketogenic diet. It's called the Ketogenic Bible. Every chapter has all these scientific studies and reviews and stuff like that. And, I can pull up stuff on saturated fat, that it's not bad for heart disease, that dietary cholesterol is not an issue, that mean cholesterol levels in the blood. So it's just all over the place. And, you can use them, and I do use them because the enemy's using them. But if you look at veganism, they compare it, let's say, vegans against meat eaters. What the hell does meat eaters mean? What is that? So is it really the carnivore diet? No, it's not. So anybody who is not vegan is a meat eater. So you have within the meat eaters, people eating meat, tons of bread, tons of spaghetti. They're eating Doritos. These are meat eaters. They're incorporated. So it's just really, really deceptive. And we can look at a study soon enough. right. It's just so confusing because you'll see here, past the butter, cutting saturated fat does not reduce heart disease risk. Cardiologist said. Then after you'll see, oh, nutritionist says this is the worst diet. Oh, new study states. Oh, it's all over the place. And humans just have to use our freaking common sense and say to ourselves, hey, before fortified foods and supplementation, what was a necessity? What did we have no choice but to eat? And it was animal food. So I don't need studies to tell me that animal food is poison. Okay. This is a huge topic that is part of the globalization. You know, there's nothing new under the sun. Okay. Rich elite globalists have been feeding peasant diets to the peasants, right, for a long time. Keep them malnourished. It affects their cognition. It affects their fertility. It affects their stamina. It affects everything, right? So if you control the food, you control the people. You control the oil. You used to control the country. Now it's you control the food, you control the people, and I guess oil isn't an issue anymore. It's you control the data, you control the people, and you control the world. So it's a bad situation. You'll never hear anything about high fructose corn syrup, right? You don't see articles about that. Yeah, so I here I'm like making nice visuals of popping up. Everything that I was saying is being popped up. Look at those nice pictures. I have to like, this was all done on KineMaster. This is all on my phone. I still do most of the videos if it's not a live stream on my phone. So anyways, you want a nice step-by-step explanation, since I'm all over the place with this keto live stream. Check that video out, please. Don't forget the seed oils. That is not part of a ketogenic diet or a human diet at all. And anyways, so all of these are pretty much ketogenic. Goes up. This was when it was called Fast Keto Prime. You know, I'm not against science, believe me, but there is something called scientism, where we have this blind faith in the scientific community. We believe, you know, just like, you know, the priests were considered holy fathers, you know, pushing, they were the doorway to truth. And the scientific community is just as corrupt at this point, whether it's healthcare, pharmaceuticals, nutrition, climate change. There is good reason for smart people to be really, really skeptical about what they're reading. Okay. I mean, during the pandemic, right? You know, the experts and the science, they were following the science. Well, it's really weird, right? Because now that they got everything that they wanted out of us, now all of a sudden the science is telling exactly what the smart, normal, common sense, non-scientist people were saying. This doesn't make sense. And all of a sudden now it's like, oh yeah, well, damage done. Okay, money's made. All right, maybe we can start like, you know, pretending that we're figuring things out now. Let's see who's here. Great, we're down to 4. All right. Hey, Pat. Phantom Similitude. I got to 380 pounds, did a 40-day water fast and lost 70 pounds, then did carnivore for 1 year and lost 100 pounds. Now I maintain with keto. Awesome. And there's actually idiots that would go up to phantom similitude that tells them, yeah, you know, like used to be 380 pounds and, you know, I did a 40-day water fast. 40-day water fast, that's not good. That's not healthy. That's dangerous. It's like, no, it's not. The longest fast was over 365 days. Longest Q fast was published. There you go. Present. Yeah. So the longest fast was 382 days. Story of Angus. There he is after. Fasted, to my knowledge, all he had was water and a multivitamin. We can all get a bit hungry if it's been a few hours since we last ate, but spare a thought for how hungry Angus Bieber must have been after he went, no, you're not hungry. Then once you're into ketosis, your hunger pretty much goes. That's why people who aren't in ketosis prior to doing a prolonged fast feel like they're dying for 48 hours, and all of a sudden the hunger subsides. This was in 1965. 1 year and 17 days, he ate no food at all, and he lost 125 kilograms. As days turned to weeks, his persistence increased. He wanted to reach his ideal weight, so he kept going. He received regular blood tests, all of which revealed his body was remarkably functioning just fine. As weeks turned into months, he compensated for his lack of food by drinking more black tea, black coffee, and sparkling water. His body began to adapt to the lack of food by burning its own fat stores for energy. Yeah, that's what happens with a ketogenic diet also, but you don't have to fast. So in a way, it creates a similar metabolic condition that is very similar to fasting. And that's one of the reasons why once you're in ketosis and you have access to fat storage, that ketosis has a appetite suppressant effect, a natural appetite suppressant effect. If you do this, like for example, look at the anorexics. The anorexics, they're not crying of hunger either, because unfortunately it's not good. But they're definitely in ketosis. These people. The problem is that they don't have any more fat to burn, so they're burning muscles and organs eventually. For the last 8 months, Angus' blood glucose levels were consistently very low, around 2 millimoles, but Scott did not suffer any adverse effects as a result. Don't try this at home. Obviously, I would never try it. No, a guy at my church did like 24 days. Impressive. All right. Great job, man. Phantom similitude. And then people would go and tell him, probably they'd be super happy if Phantom lost all that weight. They'd be really impressed. They'd be congratulating him. And then the minute that he would say that he's doing either keto or carnivore, he would they would tell him that it's dangerous and that he's going to kill himself and die of a heart attack. So if they actually manage to convince him, and then after he returns trying to eat less and to move more and to have, healthy whole grains and fruits and vegetables and all the rest of the sugar, and then put all his weight back on, they would be much happier with that, as long as he's not doing ketogenic diet. The official ambassador of the Mulata race. Hi, how can I tell if my turtle is gay? I don't know. I'm gonna have to Google that. Yes, my brother is great. Dalai Lama is congratulating Phantom for all the weight loss he did with the keto carnivore. If I eat white bread next day while walking, my thighs burn to almost painful. It's hilarious too, because I had my steak yesterday, and then I drank half a little carton of actually, what was that? I think it was 15% cream. I don't know, I got hungry, and I took that down, and I weighed myself, and I lost 2 pounds. So if I have like a carb meal, I'll put on 5 pounds because I retain the water. I blow it up. I know. If I'm driving in the car and I look in the mirror and I don't see my jawline, then I know never to look below my neck, because nothing encouraging is going to happen if I visualize anything below my neck. If I got puffy cheeks, I got the puffiness. Yeah, I'm not looking below. All eyes straight forward. That's my motto. There is one that you can kind of see. I still have, what am I? I'm 187. I started 198, so I'm 187. When I first did keto years ago, 180, I looked really good, and I'd probably need to get to maybe 175, because since my back surgery, like I said, I lost muscle. I'm not active. I'm admittedly out of shape and need to start moving and doing stuff again. With the lockdown happening, the spine surgery, I think, was just before the whole pandemic. So it's been, my goodness, been half a decade now that I haven't moved my butt. Gotta get going. No wonder I'm like out of shape. Man, time flies. Hello, Jason in chat. Hey, Maria. Who else? Anybody else there? Okay, I'm here. Let me in. All right. Copy. Paste. Sorry, I just saw it now. Resting bitch face. If you would like to come on, you're free to come on. I'm just going to be looking at the screen, so I'll pop back in about 5 minutes. I have a herniated esophagus, so if I don't eat, bile just bubbles up. Nasty. Herniated esophagus. Jeez, I work in a hospital. I've never even heard of that. Doesn't sound good. Let me see over here on the live stream. I think Dalai Lama just posted something here. Got it. Here. All right. I just found her channel. Thank you, Dalai Lama. Add stream. Hello.
Hello. How are you?
Good. Is there another name besides calling you a bitch?
Well,
hey, you're fine.
I actually,
RB.
Huh?
Can I call you RB?
You can call me RB. You can call me Mickey. I don't care what. Oh, damn, that's not happening. Okay, so, Yeah,
Darla
when I'm
Lama
down
just
in the
posted your YouTube. So I'm just
okay.
before we get started, I want to, you know, at least show everyone to encourage your channel. But go ahead, I'm listening. You can talk. I'm just gonna post
No,
this.
when I'm down at the valley at the farm, I can hear you guys because I actually hang my phone up in the barn and
Yeah,
listen to podcasts and stuff.
yeah.
But if I'm down there, I can't get a hold of any of you. So,
No.
and this past year, my life has become incredibly frenetic because my business has gone through the roof.
Okay.
So,
Well, let
yeah,
us
the
know.
whole vegan
Tell us
thing
about
and
the
the
business.
threat to the, well, that's just the thing. I left healthcare and I moved out here in 2015 for the
Okay.
specific purpose of going back to farming.
All right.
And the reason that I went back to farming was to save my life.
Okay.
And you know, I was working as a nurse,
Mm-hmm.
and I went to visit my brother out in California at one point, and he
Yeah.
sat there and he said, "You have poured your life out for everybody and you're literally dying." And he wasn't wrong. I was 418 pounds and I was
Oh,
eating
yeah.
according to the American Heart Association diet, which was basically a vegan diet. I was living in community, raising my family in community, and I was surrounded by people who were ethical vegans and vegetarians, except I didn't know any of the ones who were militants.
Yeah.
Like all the people I knew were Orthodox Catholics and Eastern Catholics who were doing this because, you know, well, like
Mm-hmm.
right now, the Great Fast has just started for Lent. You talked about 40-day water fasts. I'm on one right
Oh, really?
now
They do that?
for Lent. And, you know, huh?
No, I didn't say
Say that
anything.
one more time.
You talking to me?
Okay. But I am talking to you.
Yeah. No, because you said I didn't say anything or it was delayed or something like that.
Oh,
The last thing I said
yeah.
was 40-day water fast. I was like, whoa.
Yeah. No, and that's a personal choice, but like, you know,
Yeah.
in the Orthodox community, the fasts are very strenuous. And
Mm-hmm.
they're at Advent and Easter or Advent and Lent.
Okay.
And, you know, they're not a big deal, but it's like, you know, when I went back to farming, it was because of the fact that I had a conversation with one of my grandmothers who said, you know, you're the only one who went into healthcare. You're also the
Mm-hmm.
only one who has health problems
Mm.
and it's killing you. And your brother
Yeah.
is right. You need to like start taking care of yourself. And it's like, well, I don't know what else I can do. But what I did know was that in 15, 20 years of healthcare experience, you know, I had cardiac patients all the time who came into patient education and would sit there in frustration and cry
Mm-hmm.
because they were telling us that they did everything that we told them to do. They were
Yeah.
cutting out the fat. They were cutting out the meat. They were only eating, you know, boneless, skinless chicken and vegetables and stuff. And they were
Yeah.
becoming so inflamed. And like these were the repeat heart attacks. These were the secondary strokes.
Mm-hmm.
These were the people who were gaining weight and dying.
Yeah.
And of course, at the time, you know, I should have been looking in the mirror, but I wasn't. But these were the people who were dying.
Mm-hmm.
And the across the board, the opinion of the medical establishment was, well, these people are not telling you the truth. They're not telling you truthfully what they're doing in their self-reporting. They're
Mm-hmm.
obviously eating Twinkies and cupcakes
Yeah.
and like not reporting it, and they're
Yeah.
making themselves sick. And that's not the case.
No, I know. It's very frustrating.
And for me,
It's
you
upsetting.
know, it actually came to a head at the beginning of 2017 when I had actually gone to one of the communities that I'm affiliated with. And I was the one who made the community meal that day. And it was this lentil and rice casserole that had a ton of kale in it. And the deacon, who was the minister for the community, came in late after we blessed the meal and we had all sat down, and he said, kale, 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 kale. All we ever eat anymore is kale. And he had kind of had it too. But I'm sitting there chewing a mouthful of food, and my tongue is burning and my throat is starting to get itchy. And I'm sitting there telling myself, as soon as I'm done, I have to go take an epi shot.
Yeah. And I was doing kale too with the at the start the keto, because there's something like you put olive oil and you put salt and you kind of bake it in the oven. They become like, you know, salty and kind of
yeah,
imitation.
they're terrible.
But we had cramps. I don't know why. My whole family, it was like immediate like cramps, and I don't know why it continued. That was really early on. It's like poison. There's no benefits to it.
And that's just the thing. Now, here's the funniest part about this is that the reason I had gone there was to help them sort their seed library, because they had a semi-professional garden and they actually sold organic seeds.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd gone there for a few months to help them sort out their seed harvest that year. And I'm sitting there thinking, this is what we actually use as a pesticide on the rest of the gardens. I wonder what phytotoxins are in here that could possibly be hurting me. Mm-hmm. And a month later, I went to my...
Oh, I think you got cut out. Just give me a second. It happens. Give her time to come back. I'll post another invite telling you I did not kick you. Paste. Just come back on RB when you got that figured out. I'm just going to show a few things here. So when I'm share screening, I don't see you in the studio. I will come back in a few minutes and have you jump on board if you're there. All right. So hide. Like she had mentioned before, she has bad reception in certain areas, so she might have just cut off. I think she was, when the camera came on briefly, it looked like she might have been driving in the car, so I'm not sure. All right. So this is what popped up in my news feed from New Atlas. I did check. It is funded also by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. So all of a sudden, this pops up. Paleo and keto diets bad for health and the planet, says study. This is the kind of stuff that just the regular person who's not really into this whole nutrition and keto and veganism debunking and agriculture and all of these things, these people, they don't know. So this is why they repeat. And before I go into the study, this is News Atlas. Okay. Then after I had, of course, I won't find it now. Sorry, guys. Just give me 1 second. What I'm trying to prove here. Here. Okay. So this one you would think is 1 day ago. Paleo and keto diets bad for health and the planet, says study. So you would think, well, you know, this guy is a journalist, whatever, a writer. He decided to do an article, but it's kind of like, wow, what a coincidence. Keto and paleo. Oh, that's from ZME Science. And then keto diet is the worst diet on the planet, basically. The keto diet is the worst diet for the body and the earth. That's on News Yahoo. Scientists rank. So do you understand that it's coming in waves, and it seems like multiple news sources just had by coincidence just happened to be writing very, very similar news articles. All right. There she is. There you
Sorry.
go. No, it's okay. I figured
I'm
it
really
cut
terrible with technology. So, no, but what I was saying was that, you know, it came to the point where I recognized that I'm not just salicylate sensitive, but I can't handle oxalates. And one thing that a lot of people don't understand, especially if you've never been involved in agriculture, is that kale historically is a plant that we grew so that we could chop it up, blend it up with water, and use it as a pesticide.
My goodness.
And now it's being marketed not only as cattle feed, which it has never been in the past, but it's also being marketed to human beings as food. Well, the reason that it works is because it is so high in oxalic acid. And you'd think that with my upbringing and my education and my college education that I would have put two and two together long before I did. You know, before it had the potential to actually kill me.
Yeah.
And you know, I have a family to take care of. I have things that I have to do. And I have farmers' daughters, grandmothers that, you know, have all died in their late 90s. And I was looking at, you know, dropping dead of a heart attack by the time I was 50.
Yeah.
And so going back to farming for me and leaving healthcare was explicitly so I could save my life. And part of that meant stopping eating fruits and vegetables because they're all high in oxalates. They're all high in salicylates. There's no way around it. And, you know, and if I'm going to go back to an agrarian life, then I need to be raising my own food for me and my family.
Yeah.
And so it started out, you know, just with a couple dozen chickens that I got at the livestock auction when I first moved out here, and a few bottle calves and a few goat kids. And then in the last year, it kind of exploded because all of a sudden, this threat to our food sovereignty has become very, very real.
Yeah.
And I started getting phone calls from, like, this past fall, I literally sold my entire cattle herd one by one. So all I had left were new heifers getting ready to calve, and now I'm starting to get calves, and I'm starting over with the livestock auction and making a deal with one of the bigger producers here in my county.
Yeah.
But the fact of the matter is that, you know, I sold more cattle this past fall than I have since 2015, which is when I transitioned back to a rural life.
And you're in which state?
I'm actually in Ohio.
Ohio.
Yeah.
Not near East Palestine?
East Palestine. I'm actually 27. My place is 27 miles southwest.
That's not far.
It's not far at all. And we're still collecting water to take up there because you know, and the worst part of this is the fact that, you know, the federal government, the people that they sent in 2 weeks after the fact, have basically taken no responsibility to clean this up. The railroad is doing the bare minimum. People are scared to go back to their homes, and they're already being told by their insurance that their homes are now worthless. They're never going to be able to sell and move. If they have to move, then they're going to have to.
The government should pay these people out. Like,
oh, absolutely. Because the last 3 presidential administrations that we've had, starting with Obama, they have just gutted transportation regulations for the trains. We have train tracks, you know, that go through here in Fox Township every which way.
Yeah.
And they're completely rusted out. And we have live trains on them. You know, you hear the train whistles in the middle of the night. We know that they're coming through. We had no idea that they were coming through with 150 cars on one, you know, engine block and 2 people on board. And the bad thing about what happened here in East Palestine, according to the people that I know who are here, is that these guys started punching holes in those 26 cars. They said it was 10. It's not. It's 26 cars.
Okay.
And they lit it on fire before they even called the fire department or their dispatch to let them know that there had been a derailment.
Doesn't even make sense. I don't really, because that's what I was telling my wife. I was like, okay, wait, give me a sec. So I go, I'm just an idiot here. I go, seems like those containers could have carefully been pumped into another container and
Yeah,
removed as much as you can.
you would think
Then
that, right? No, they
yeah,
punched holes in these train cars and lit them on fire.
yeah, the whole
And
world
then
saw, you know.
and then before they even sought to evacuate people within the burn zone, or what they called the
Mhm.
burn zone, which was like 2 miles radius,
Okay.
they went through all the neighborhoods that the
Yeah.
train company did. They sent canvassers out to get people to sign a waiver of responsibility
Okay.
in exchange for a small check. Some people said they were offered $500. Some people say they were offered $3,000. And
Yeah.
they were told that if they signed this, then they wouldn't be subject to litigation. Well, of course, you can't say that to an 85-year-old lady who doesn't know what you're talking about.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
So there's going to be some lawsuits coming, I hope. But right now, it's like the people who live on the other side of my valley are basically just terrified because they don't
Mhm.
know what they're going to do long term. They don't know what the long term health effects are. Some people haven't even come home yet. It's been almost a month now. Well, it actually has. It's been a month now. I have friends who are as far west as Austintown and Salem who have lost all or most of their livestock, and that's west.
Wow.
The good thing that happened going into the second week was that we had really big windstorms with 30-mile-an-hour winds that blew a lot of it out. But of course, that went into Pittsburgh and beyond into Pennsylvania. So they've been losing wildlife and livestock too. Um, you know, East Palestine is right on the Ohio River, which is
Yeah.
already one of the dirtiest rivers in the country. And so, all the fish are dying, the deer are dying,
No, the only truth though that was shown was literally like people that are residents pissed off on TikTok or something doing shorts
Oh,
showing,
it's terrible. Yeah. And it has been really bad. And of course, it's like I run a farm. I have morning chores and evening chores. I have my family to take care of.
yeah.
And so the best that I've been able to do is if somebody calls me and says, "Can you come help with this?" Then yeah, I'm driving back and forth to help with what I can do. But there's not a whole lot that can be done because this
No, damage is done.
it's horrible. And like
It's
there's no way to get around it.
now
I'm
they're
in
like, oh yeah, the EPA and FEMA, everyone's there. It's like it's too late.
No, they're
Like,
not. They're not there.
yeah. Even
Mayor.
if, yeah, exactly. They're probably saying this is what I just saw in the news, but yeah, even if they were, it's too late. Like the freaking damage has been done
The
anyways.
EPA didn't even bother to send somebody until more than 2 weeks after the fact.
Okay.
When Mayor Pete, the idiot that they have as the Secretary of Transportation right now, came off
Yeah.
maternity leave for 5 minutes to come down here, a lot of people were very angry because he literally came in the middle of the night, did an early
Hmm.
morning walkthrough for his photo op, and then left. He didn't talk to a single resident the entire time he was here.
Wow.
And so the government doesn't give a shit about this. And and the locals are actually all around us, is as
Yeah.
far west as Carrollton and all the way up to Youngstown. Basically everybody here has agreed that this was deliberate.
Yeah.
There are very few people who
Of
don't
course.
think that this was deliberate, because they think what they're trying to do is they're trying to empty out this area of eastern Ohio and western Pennsylvania. And the reason for that is because we're sitting on top of the Utica Shale. I've talked about this in some of my past videos. One
It's
of the
called,
reasons,
isn't it called like forced migration or something,
yes,
like creating disasters to force the
to
population,
force people out. And here's the
yeah.
reason why. So we're sitting on the Utica Shale, which is one of the richest reserves of natural gas, oil, and coal in the entire Western Hemisphere. And right now, the bottom has fallen out of fracking. So they're not making a whole lot of money from fracking shale. But I also am living now in one of the most industrially and agriculturally contaminated regions of the country. And I did that purposely because the land is dirt cheap.
Yeah.
The land may be contaminated for humans, but here's the thing about, and this was my ag project all through high school, was soil conservation and cultivation. If you can put animals on the land, then you can undo a lot of whatever contamination you have.
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, it was about putting animals on the land, being able to provide my own food, being able to provide food for my family, and then being able to build up, some market gardens so I could start selling herbal products and whatever else at the farmers markets. And that's what I've done. That's the business that I've built. But they want us out of here so that they don't have to deal with the population, because if they have to deal with landowners who actually have oil and mineral rights, well, then they have to pay us for it.
Mm-hmm.
And so the land that I've bought, all the land that I actually own is with the mineral rights. All of the land that I lease the mineral rights belong to the lessees. But I've managed to lease land from people who have not allowed the petroleum industry to come in yet. Well, if they can contaminate the soil to make it inhospitable to both livestock and humans, then they can get us all out of here. And they can try and get us into cities, because that's the push, is to get us all to leave rural life.
Yeah. You guys are the enemy. You guys are enemy number one. So.
And that's why I keep telling everybody it's like pretty much all of my friends and family that are younger than me keep saying, well, when the shit hits the fan, we're coming to your place.
Yeah.
And I'm like, don't come here, because I will put you to work.
Yeah, well, good.
That's the thing, though, is that I grew up in a military family. I grew up in an agricultural family. I grew up in an agricultural community. If you don't know what you're doing by now, if you're not raising livestock, you are livestock.
Yeah.
And if you're living in a city, you're most definitely not livestock. And
is there from an insider, since you are a farmer, what about, like, are they jipping you on the cattle prices? Meaning, like,
they would be if I was actually selling them at auction, at public auction for the processors. I'm not. I sell cattle locally as a private producer, and I have a local processor, a specialty processor that I actually work with. Right now we're selling freezer beef, and I don't have any available right now, but we were selling freezer beef for $3.29 a pound.
Wow. And
that's straight across the board. You're not, like, if you buy a half a beef, then you're paying $3.29 a pound. And the video that I posted today was actually from yesterday. One of the chores that I'm working on right now, because the farmers markets up towards Cleveland start at the end of the month, is I'm prepping all of the tallow that I froze from this last fall.
Yeah.
We have a lot of people who buy freezer beef who don't want the suet, which is a total waste. But it's like, I recapture all of that and I put it in the meat locker and I save it until I need it. And so right now it's like I've been cutting and grinding all that stuff, and I pack it in bags in 50-pound lots, and then I shove it in the freezer. And
wow.
all of that stuff is usable, but it's like, if you don't want your fat, you're leaving money behind, as far as I'm concerned.
I know, believe me.
And so if they want it trimmed, I get all the fat. And if they take it away, that's awesome. That's even better, because if you can't eat it all, you can turn it into soap. You can turn it into body products. You can use it for chicken feed and dog food. But people don't think like that anymore. And, so
we're like whales in marine land. Majority of the people don't even know how to make
really don't.
make soap or anything. I don't.
Dude, and it's so
I
sad.
mean, I can
Like,
figure it out, but
I learned
you
how to
know,
make soap when I was 11 years old. Soap is
Mm.
if you can make a box of macaroni and cheese, you can make your own soap.
Yeah, I
I
know.
mean, any grade school kid who can make a box of mac and cheese can make soap.
Yeah,
And that's one of the things that I think is so hilarious about it, is that I make great soap,
yeah,
and I sell it for $8 a bar, and it's like, and it actually cost me $1.78 to make.
hmm
And so, you know, it's like I go up to Cleveland and sell it to all the posh people, and it's like, and they love it.
yeah.
And so, all right, well, if you want it, I'll sell it to you. But I think it's kind of ridiculous, you know.
Yeah.
But I do have a good, I get good business.
It's
And
fun.
so
It's
I do
funny
it.
because what for me, what's very frustrating, it's because you brought it up, and I don't want to forget about this part. Um, it's like there is an agenda, you
Very
know,
much so.
to
Yes.
feed us, basically, to make us graze like cows, to just feed as much of the subsidized grain directly, you know, to us. So the vegans are just, you know, they're just beaming with joy, you know.
Right.
And now you have all this corrupt epidemiological observational science associations and publications of this, and you know, so the vegans keep on trying to pull up these studies and stuff like that, and it's like, yeah, why do you think there's so much being published now? It's like
So
they're
so
just
let me tell you what
yeah,
I actually think is going on.
go ahead.
So back in the 80s when I first went into healthcare,
Hmm.
um I as a college student, I worked as a paramedic and a trauma tech.
Yeah,
And I was working in hospitals, and I loved patient care. Absolutely loved it. Had
yeah, me
so
too.
much fun. I'm an adrenaline junkie anyway, so it was fun for me.
Yeah.
But I still remember sitting there on the first day of one of my dietetic classes, and this was when they were first discussing the first USDA food pyramid that was coming out. And it wasn't actually published for like another 2 or 3 years, something like that.
Okay.
But they post it, and I'm sitting there looking at this chart, and I remember raising my hand, and I told the professor that day, I said, the macros on that chart look almost identical to a bag of commercial pig feed. And she says, I don't understand the relevance. And I said, well, let me explain it this way. I grew up on a dairy farm. And when we actually do our fractions, so we have a 2,000-gallon tank in the milking parlor. That milk gets loaded into a truck. It gets taken 10 miles away to a creamery. At the creamery, they separate the milk. And then the fraction of the milk, which is now called skim milk,
Yes,
that
what they encourage us
fraction,
to drink.
yes, one of two things happened to that fraction. And the reason it's called blue milk is because the reason that like the skim milk actually has a blue cap on it is
Mm,
because that's literally what we called it. We called it blue milk. And one
okay.
of two things happened with that. It would either be sent out on a returning milk truck into a field, and they would spray it on the field, or it would be given to the pigs as food. And the reason you give it
Imagine.
to the pigs as food is because it's almost pure sugar. And this is the fastest way to get a pig to gain weight, is to feed them nothing but corn and blue milk.
Yeah.
You can fatten up a pig in record time feeding them a milk fraction. And what you're telling us right now is that this is the optimum human diet, to be drinking that shit.
Mhm.
And it didn't make any sense to me. But then I sat there and I listened to this woman tell me, well, do you have a master's in nutrition? Well, no, I don't. She says, well, I do.
Mm-hmm.
And
Appeal to authority.
I'm telling you that you're wrong. And so as a 20-year-old woman, I was sitting there going, okay, I guess I'm wrong. But it didn't make any sense to me. And at the
Yeah.
same time, I had this nagging doubt in my head, because it's like at that time, we were actually using pig hearts in experimentation for heart transplants.
Yeah.
And my specialty in my BSN was cardiology.
Okay.
So I'm sitting there thinking, okay, so they're genetically, there's enough genetic similarity that they think they can use pig hearts as at least temporary transplants.
Mm-hmm.
But we're being told that pig physiology is so much different than human physiology that we're not going to end up with the same outcomes with adipose tissue. And it didn't make sense, but at the same time I was sitting there going, okay, well, whatever. And the result of that was that I was doing things, I was telling patients things in patient education years later that were killing them, that were making them obese.
I had an endocrinologist when I was because I lost like 55 pounds in less than a year, so it showed. You'll see some of my older videos. I kind of show the before, so people are like interested and stuff like that. And it was the summer where keto was booming. It was all over on YouTube. Intermittent fasting, Jason Fung. So it was all that. And I was talking, I don't even think that I was talking about keto that time. I think I was just talking about fasting. And I didn't know who this doctor was. Pretty young, probably younger than me. I'd seen her maybe once or twice. She looked really snooty. And and she would even write in, if she was in the ICU, she would write, only doctor to doctor communications, meaning I don't want to hear, that's how I heard it. Exactly. And all of a sudden I hear, excuse me, but I'm an endocrinologist and I don't agree with anything you're saying. So and I can't concentrate.
Exactly.
And I said, I said, I'm really sorry that your eavesdropping is bothering you. But anyways, so I basically told her, I said, listen, you're working on a patient. I don't want to get you frazzled and stuff like that. And I said, I'm quite aware you're a doctor. I said, but doctors don't learn anything about nutrition. So
no, they don't. No.
So, anyway, she was upset. I was expecting her probably to try and get me in trouble or something like that. Go ahead, continue.
I can't get you in trouble because you're a patient. But
I pushed her because I told her, I said, if you're an endocrinologist, I had really went off her. I said, if you're an endocrinologist, can you explain to me why diabetes, which is insulin resistance from chronically high insulin levels, that you're giving insulin to diabetics? To control the sugar, which is only a symptom. Anyways, it became like
so let's extrapolate that attitude towards the general society at large. Okay. So anybody who took earth sciences, geology, anything like that in junior high or high school back in the 70s and 80s, we actually learned shit. But then we forgot a lot of what we learned because they pile this kind of specialization stuff on top of you and they try to sit there and tell you that you don't know what you know. So back in like the 1979, 1980, somewhere in there, they started talking about acid rain and they said, this is a given.
I remember.
The earth is going to be ruined by acid rain. We're going to have great famines by the year 2000. This is going to happen. Okay. So then fast forward 10, 15 years. Then we have Al Gore going around the world telling us that, we're going to have these massive floods because of global warming. And this is all going to end up flooding. Manhattan is going to be gone. Florida is going to be nothing but a sandbar, which it already is. So it doesn't matter. And everything's going to be destroyed. We're being diverted and we're being told that we don't know what we actually do know. Okay. And I know that you're a Christian. I want you to just bear with me for a minute.
Yeah, no problem.
In the first chapter of the book of Genesis, it says, in the beginning, the earth was desolate and it was void. It didn't say the earth doesn't exist. It says it was desolate and void. That particular phrase only appears one other time in scripture, and it's in Jeremiah, where it actually talks about a global cataclysm.
All right.
And what we know now in physics, in astrophysics, and anybody who is studying the galactic sheet that we have coming off the sun right now, we're in the middle of a vicious sunspot cycle. Like
Okay, yeah, I don't know
literally
any of
sitting
that.
here up on the ridge, and it's 63 degrees at the beginning of March. This
Okay, wow.
last month, we regularly had 70-degree days. And it's because of the sunspot cycle, because that's where our weather actually comes from.
Mm-hmm.
Well, how did we end up having 5 mass extinctions? It's because our sun dictates our weather. Our
Mm-hmm.
sun dictates our magnetosphere. Our electromagnetic field that's in the crust of the earth
Yeah.
actually plays off the sun and the moon. And this isn't just about our planet, it's about every planet. Right now on Jupiter, we've got a new storm.
Yeah.
And we can see it with just a small telescope. And I've got a dad who's sitting on a mountain right now with his own stuff, and he loves to sit up there, and he's, because he's up there in the mountains, he does sky charts for NASA, and he's sitting there with his little observatory at night looking at this stuff going, yep, this shit is going to hit the fan. And that's what they're trying to distract us from.
Yeah.
Is that we're on the verge of the 6th mass extinction, but it has nothing to do with man-made global warming. It has nothing to do with cow farts. It has nothing to do with us at all. We're getting ready for a micronova event, which happens like every 12 to 60,000 years, depending on which cycle we're in.
Okay.
And this is the whole human story. God, God is the master watchmaker. And all of these things happen on a cycle. And look at the degradation of society now. Look at the matrix shit that's going on.
Oh yeah,
we're living in a society that is rapidly becoming depraved. And if you look back in Genesis and Exodus, well, what happened with Sodom and Gomorrah? It says that God came from on high and sent fire and brimstone onto the earth and turned everything to glass and salt. Well, we've seen it before. If you look at this stuff from a cosmological perspective, you see that it is a watch, and it rewinds itself and it resets itself. 2 weeks ago, the core of the earth stopped spinning, and now it's in reversal mode. We have a magnetic excursion that's going on with our north and south poles. Right now, the South Pole is out in the middle of the South Atlantic.
Okay.
And,
I'm completely ignorant of all that. I'm just showing how stupid
this.
I can admit, when I don't know a topic, I don't know a topic.
No, that's
which is funny because my brother's,
but this is what they're trying to distract you from. Because if you actually knew what was truly going on, and I'm not talking about you personally, I'm talking if people knew what was actually happening, they would get out of the cities. They would start taking care of their lives. They would actually, want to be with their families and want to actually have community. And as it is, the vast majority of people today, in less than a century, because, back in 1950, 45% of Americans were still living on the farm.
Yeah.
Now we're down to less than 1%.
Well, see, that's the vegan argument. They look at, because the grain industry and all of that, and they're like, oh, look, the cows are eating all this, and
no, they're not. And that's one of the things. Well, and I got involved in all of this because a few years ago, my nephew actually called me and he says, what do you know about veganism? And I said, honestly, except for the people that I know, not a whole lot. I think it's kind of dumb because I don't think God wants you to torture yourself for the remission of sins.
And I could care less about if people wanted to go vegan. I mean, people were going vegans in the 60s a lot, in the West.
Yeah. No. And
I don't care. I don't care. What I care about,
you do you. You're fine.
Yeah. What I care is that it's not a choice. What they're doing is they're the useful idiots that basically a grain diet, and it's a huge deception. And they will economically restrict us from eating eggs, dairy, cheese, meat,
and
all
this is
this.
exactly the direction we're heading in.
And
Now,
that's why I'm aggressive, because now I'm like, okay, well, you vegans who are like, yay, look at this, it's like, no, you're going to get just as screwed as us, and you're helping the enemy. And just because they've jumped on to your cult ideology, they jumped onto the cult ideology because they're a cult also.
Well, and that's part of the
logo.
problem. The way to look at this is not that these people are just idiots or that they're horrible people, although there are quite a few of them who are, especially the top influencers that we see. But the thing that makes this so pernicious is that these people are actually victims of victims, and they don't know it.
Yeah.
These are people who have been bought into a lie, kind of like the Watchtower Society and Jehovah's Witnesses. Those people believe so much in what they've been taught that they will literally put their entire lives on hold and go on welfare so that they can spend 6 hours a day going door to door to make God happy,
to earn their way to heaven.
But then they show up at my house and they find out, it's like, have you ever taken any Hebrew? No. Well, guess what? Do you know what the word Jehovah actually means? You can look it up in Strong Concordance when you leave here. The word Yah actually means God, but the word Hova in Hebrew, it means disaster, ruin, or mischief. Now tell me, who's the God of disaster, ruin, and mischief? Because it certainly ain't my God.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. Until you get them to think critically and ask the right questions, you will never see any of these people back down, because there's this invincible ignorance that can't be overcome, because they are so emotionally and physically invested in what they have gotten themselves trapped in that no, we're not going to listen, because that's bad. If we listen, it's bad, because critical thinking is stupid.
Yeah, no, definitely. I just find it like it's like when you know what the plan is, then it all just starts making sense.
And here's the plan. And so Klaus Schwab at the World Economic Forum wrote his first book in 1971. I had never really paid attention to this guy. I have a brother who is a federal attorney, and I had asked him about him a few years ago, and he said that he thought he was just a nut job. Well, so I have a brother who's a physicist. I have a brother who's a U.S. attorney. I have a brother-in-law who actually works for NASA. I have conversations with these men all the time about what they're thinking, and then I'm listening to this idiot, this wannabe Bond villain, and this book that he wrote long ago, where he's talking about how we know that the world is going to come to an end at some time, and the way that we're going to reduce suffering at that horrible time when everything comes to a crashing halt is by killing off the population. That's what this is all about.
And they're doing it on so many levels. They're doing it by destroying, just the nuclear family,
absolutely,
encouraging alternate lifestyles. Right. All of these synthetics are reducing our testosterone and fertility. The vegan diet pushed on us. Forget about it. No more periods for most people.
Well, and I don't remember who posted it, but somebody did an interview with Joel Salatin a couple months ago, or maybe it's just been this last month. But, he actually has said that he is being contacted by some of these elites who are recognizing the fact that this is coming to the fore. Like, we are expecting this micronova event within the next 20 years. That's what the science is actually saying. And it's the shit that's not being publicized. Like, people seriously need to wake up and realize that the world works on a cycle, and it's directed by our star. And
it's just before cutting you off, though, it is interesting because when in the biblical narrative, you got the flood, and he says, I'm never going to destroy, the world with water. But they say that the next one will be destroyed with fire. And it even talks about about the sky being rolled up with like a scroll, you know, with flames and
Yes,
stuff like that.
you
And
got
like,
it.
if you look at the degeneracy in society now, makes Sodom and Gomorrah story look like
Oh, it
nothing.
look yes, it
You
does.
know, so
And
in my head, I'm like, hey, I keep, you know, everyone's been saying for 2,000 years, the end, it's the end, the end, the end.
but see,
So, I mean,
here's the thing. That's a
but it makes
genetic.
sense. Social degeneration, you're saying that everything will be
Yeah.
destroyed by the sun. So I'm like,
The reason that people feel like this, the reason that every generation has that thing in the back of their mind of this might be the last of us, is because
yeah.
that's a genetic memory. I mean, look at the heads on Easter Island. You
Hmm.
know, when we were little kids, when I was a little kid in the 70s, we were being taught that, oh, we don't know how those got there. We think that it was
Hmm.
Polynesians who came in little boats across the Pacific and who
Yeah.
carved these heads because they just found these rocks sitting here. And then you find out that the bodies that go with these heads are submerged under
Okay.
like
I was about to
many
impress
feet
you. I
of dirt.
wanted to impress you. I was going to say, actually, they're not heads. The whole
Yeah, no, they're not
yeah.
heads at all. Well, where'd all
Yeah.
that dirt come from? And why is it an island when it was actually a mountaintop? The same is true of the Sphinx, you know? And if you look 5,000 years ago, when it talks about Egypt in like the Song of Songs,
Mm-hmm.
it's talking about lush green gardens and verdant, you know, landscapes and,
Yeah.
you know, sheep as far as the eye can see. You look at the book of Job. Job came from that same region of the land. And
Yeah.
it talks about him having thousands upon thousands of cattle and oxen
Yep.
and goats and sheep. And the fact of the matter is that that land was very productive 6,
Mm-hmm.
7,000 years ago. Now
Yeah.
it's a desert, and the Sphinx that predates the Giza what
Mm-hmm.
do you call those things? Pyramids.
Yeah.
That that thing is buried 20 feet deep. The only
Mm-hmm.
thing we see is the monument on top. We don't see what.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, the Egyptian government says, nope, nobody gets to see what's inside there. We know that there's rooms down there and we know what they are and we know what's in them, but you don't get to do any more
Yeah.
archaeology. What are
They
they
even say
hiding?
they think, you know, the Sphinx, the head, you know,
Yes,
is not even the original. That way
it's
they
not.
think that
Yeah,
that
right,
they put like the Egyptian rebuilt on top of something way older,
right.
and added, you know, the head.
So, the growing perception of a lot of scientists who are afraid to say this in public because of our current political climate is that we are headed for another global mass extinction, that we're headed into, that we're already in the middle of a polar excursion where the Earth, you know, switches
Mm.
polarity and then it loses its magnetic field. We get hit by a solar burst from the sun which will hit us in 8 minutes when it happens. It's not going to be, you know, some slow thing. We're going to
Okay.
have 8 minutes to prepare. And then we're going to end up with this mass cataclysm that is worldwide. And
Yeah.
after the fact, when the Earth slams back into its normal orbit and the land reorients itself, that's when the flooding comes. And that's a natural
Yeah,
progression
that makes sense. Yeah.
of the Earth cycle. Okay, so
Hmm.
we have these cycles that hit every 15, every 6,000, every 12,000, every 60,000 years. And we know that. Science knows this.
Hmm.
Scientists know this. Physicists know this. But they can't say anything publicly. Why? Because they'll lose their funding.
Yeah.
And it's the same in whatever industry you're in. When I first started in healthcare, we were generally speaking run by states, counties, and religious organizations. Today, most of our hospitals are owned by hedge funds,
Yeah.
which is why healthcare is a nightmare to work in and why I will never go back.
Yeah.
And then you have all of these other organizations. Well, you know, every single college in the United States that's run by the state is receiving funding from big pharma and big tech.
Well, it's like they like the dietetics, you know, the Institute of
Yeah,
Nutrition, I think, in dietetics, and the
and
vegans love.
dietetics, yes.
Look, they say that vegan diet is good for all ages, even
Yeah.
babies and
And they have these massive, you know, General Mills,
its own,
Kellogg's,
yeah,
all of this
Pepsi,
stuff is right.
PepsiCo, and stuff like that. And a lot of
And
these
so,
institutions are privately funded. Like it sounds official, but then you look at
it's
it
not.
and it's just,
it's all just bullshit. I actually had one of my nieces who was taking, she decided that she wanted to be a nutritionist. And we had this discussion a few years ago at Thanksgiving of all things. And she tried to sit there and tell me that a box of macaroni and cheese could be part of a healthy diet. And I told her she was full of shit.
Good.
And it's like,
it's the word. Look, we have an obese, very obese patient, right, in the ICU. Intubated, extubate, goes on the floor, then crashes and burns, comes back down, reintubated. Now the guy's trached. And pretty much there's nothing wrong with him anymore, but he's been so, he lost so much muscle, but he maintained so much fat. And I told her, I said, this guy needs to lose weight. I said, because he's never going to be able to lift that fat to build more muscle. I said, he's going to die just because he's fat.
And it's a
horrible
they should fast this guy,
Right. They should fast this guy. And like, they're like, no way, I'm like, look, then can we talk to the nutritionist and at least, because we have like a calorimeter, you can look at the, metabolic rate and stuff. And I said, then, skimp on it, 500 at least, or something like that. And, they're like, no, they don't do that. Like, no, she has to maintain his caloric intake for some reason.
Well, it's because of the fact that if he were to die, if they were to do restrictive diet and he dies, then they could be accused of a wrongful death.
And
that's
it. Like the nutritionist has no choice, even if she believed that. She wouldn't be able to do it.
Because she has to go along with policy.
She has to follow also just this freaking food guide that was redone 5 years ago or something.
Exactly right. And this is exactly the reason why, even though I got my health back, this is the reason why I will never work in healthcare again. I agreed to go out and get my paramedics license and become a FEMA responder so that I could help my local community after this disaster in East Palestine. But I'm only doing it for the volunteer fire department. I want absolutely nothing to do with our 4, emergency rooms in the, I'll drop off, but I'm not staying.
Well, I mean, being a farmer, I admire that. You must be a lot happier. You must be a lot happier just working as a farmer.
I can't even begin.
I'm not saying it's easy. I'm saying it sounds like a dream job because it's like you're connected with the nature. You can rebuild the soil.
Well, I grew up in dairy and beef in West Central Idaho, and when I was a little kid, I used to get in trouble. Neighbors would call my parents and tell them that I was laying out in the dry cow pasture again. And I was usually, laying with newborn calves and stuff, and everybody thought I was going to get trampled to death. My entire life, I have believed that.
It's like it's part of your being, You're
it is. My entire childhood, I thought that cattle were basically like dogs with hooves. And it didn't matter what my parents said. It's like if the cattle were out in the pasture, then I was out in the pasture too.
Yeah.
And when I was in high school, I got engaged to a dairy farmer. That's what I was supposed to do with my life. At least that's what I thought. And then I got all Biosphere 2 happened, and I got all out of whack over that. That's why I left the state and went to Arizona to go to school, was because there was this. Now, this is a really interesting story. There was a longevity researcher. He was a medical doctor. His name was Roy Walford at the University of Southern California. And my grandmother had this thing for the New York Times and National Geographic. And I started seeing this guy's stuff in the magazines and the whole plan for Biosphere 2 and all the testing and stuff that they were going to do there. And they got this team. I can't remember if it was 6 or 8 people out there in this geodome, this massive geodome, where they thought that they could raise all their own food and that they would be just fine. They didn't even last 2 years. But Roy Walford was interesting because he had this idea that he could expand his lifespan to 110 years by eating a plant-based diet. Which is one of the reasons I went along with the shit that I was learning in nutrition and dietetics.
Yeah.
Because he was publishing papers on this stuff back in the 70s and 80s. Well, then we had the advent of the internet, and he started posting his stuff on his own website. And so he's doing research at USC, and he's posting all these papers about, life extension and the clean eating method to extending life and longevity and stuff. And as time goes by, he went from looking like this strapping, physical specimen of an athlete to just this broken down man, and just starts looking like an elder. But he truly believed this stuff, and he would take his own blood and run his labs. He was always, doing BMI testing and all that other stuff. And he would run himself on the treadmill to do all that stuff. Well, this is a man who died at 79 of ALS. Well, what do we know about ALS? And he knew this too, because he was a physician. People who have ALS,
no cholesterol.
They have no cholesterol, and they have chronic deficiencies in all the fat soluble vitamins, especially vitamin D and vitamin E, which are both hormones.
Yeah.
Well, so, he not only shorted himself because he said that his family members before him usually lived into their late 80s, early 90s, but he also died a horribly painful death. And his research partner had said even during the last 2 or 3 years of her life, she was actually going to Mexico to find the strongest pot she could find, because he couldn't even deal with the barbiturates and the opioids that they were trying to give him, because it didn't touch his pain.
Yeah.
So the last 2 years of his life with ALS, they've got him on cannabis, on massive quantities of it, just to try and control the pain, because he had contractures that were so bad. And all of that is caused by a plant-based diet. It just is. You can say
even
the
crappy nutritional studies that I hate and stuff like that. There's one of them. It's like, okay, so lower cardiovascular disease rates, whatever. Okay, sure, but higher strokes for you guys, and 4 times more fractures.
Absolutely. So, well, and that's something that even my dad and I have talked about recently. It's like, we talked again about the thing that my grandmothers and I talked about. I was raised on the farm. I grew up on dairy and beef. We had a frickin' beef carcass hanging in the garage from the time I was an infant onward, and of course you can do that in the high desert. You can't do it out here. But, I grew up in agriculture. I grew up on a very clean agrarian diet, a seasonal agrarian diet, which is basically beef and mutton in the wintertime and lamb and chicken in the summer. And, dairy and eggs and butter and whatever else throughout. And, garden in season. That's how I was raised. If I had stuck with that, I would have been fine. But even my dad has mentioned the fact, he says, it's interesting that you, your brothers, and your cousins, there is no history of cancer in our family. There's no history of heart disease in our family. There is no history of diabetes except for my uncle, who went to the Middle East for several years during the war in Afghanistan to do optics for them. And then he came back and he had diabetes and had to go back to a all beef diet, basically. But it's fine because he raises cattle, so what does it matter? And not one of us has ever had a broken bone. The only one who lost any teeth, even, like, everyone in our family has a perfect smile except for me, because while I was eating a plant-based diet, my teeth fell apart and I lost 3 of them.
I have full of cavities when I was, and it was all like when I was even, I think probably before being an adult,
Yeah.
But I mean, back in those days, it was fruit roll-ups. Kool-Aid. Everybody. Oh yeah,
Yeah, we were never allowed. My mother was militant about that thing. Yeah. Like in junior high school, we had She was the wife of the principal, and to raise money for our football team, she would sell donuts for a quarter in the laundry room by the boys' locker room. And that was the first time I ever actually had bakery pastries in junior high school, because my mother did not allow that stuff in our house.
Yeah.
And my mom hated going grocery shopping as it was. When it was summertime, she'd lock us kids out of the house, and we ate our lunch out of the garden.
Yeah. No, that's it. I
And
haven't had, and I used to always have like tartar here in the back and
yeah,
I have no more tartar, and
that's
the
awesome.
dentist is like, like, oh, did you do something different and stuff like that? No,
Yeah.
my teeth remain very, very clean. To be honest, I don't even brush my teeth.
No.
Gross, but anyways, but the whole time I'm looking at it and I'm going, nutrition and physical degeneration. I'm thinking of that book, and I felt like saying, should I buy this book in French for this guy or something? Because
you
like
definitely should.
the whole dentistry and stuff like that. I'm not saying, I mean, you do need dentists, but this whole like cleaning and stuff like that, and cavity filling stuff, that's just like money maker. And they must know, like, it's like, oh wow, all of these cultures that weren't in touch with modern men, they didn't have dentists and stuff, and their teeth were like immaculate.
Right.
Like they
Well,
were just
and when
like,
you work in
perfect.
healthcare, you're caught between a rock and a hard place, because if you go against policy and procedure, then you're likely to not only get fired, but you're likely to end up losing whatever licensure or certification you have.
I was getting in trouble for talking about it at work.
Yeah. I mean, I used to get written up all the time and this was the one thing that I did in patient education that drove people nuts. And then when Brown University released their study that says butter is actually good for you.
Mhm.
I
But
was a
that's it.
vocational.
They make a campaign, like eggs are
Yeah.
bad because of cholesterol. Oh,
Right.
butter, and but the amount of viewing, they push it, and then
Right.
after
Oh yeah.
when that's like redacted or they turn, then it's like, shh, you don't see it.
Well, and that's the thing. When I was in college, and we did all that shit, and then they release you into the wild, into it's like my first hospital was a teaching hospital. The next two were like private hospitals, and of course you have to go by doctor's orders. But when I was a teenager and I was a vocational agriculture student, because I went to a Votech high school,
Mhm.
we had to go do stupid field trips. It's like we had to go to a dairy and, grade calves and grade cattle. And, and one of the
Yeah.
things that they had us do was we had to go to this Missoula corn oil processing plant.
Okay.
And that's where, as a teenager, I got to see how margarine was made.
Yes.
And that is
Magical.
the grossest, nastiest shit in the world.
Yeah.
And it's like, we didn't need margarine, but my mother was watching Florence Henderson on morning TV and decided that it must be good. And it's like, fortunately, my grandmothers were still making butter every day, so it didn't matter.
Yeah.
But I came home from that field trip and told my mom, that is poison. That's plastic. And she did not believe me, because, of course, I'm a teenager. Who
You're
believes
ahead of
me?
your time. Yeah.
But when I got to the point where I was doing patient education with diabetics and cardiac patients, I would tell them, go ahead and keep eating butter, don't eat margarine because it's poison. And of
Yeah.
course I was getting written up for it, because they would come back and they'd tell their cardiologist that they were eating butter because Mickey told me
Yeah.
that I could do that. And it's like, and then the doctors are calling me in and saying, did you do that? Well, of course I did, because it's poison.
Yeah.
That's not food. That's
And
like
see,
what used to be food.
it's the same thing. Like I can punch up. There's a lot of research about the seed oils being horrible in
Oh yeah.
PubMed, in the NIH, so, and that's why the vegans and stuff like that, trying to justify every single thing by because they can only hang on to scientific reviews that are biased,
But
or
see,
else
this is the
common
thing.
sense has
It's
to come
not
in.
just
You know,
that these so-called reviews or these surveys are biased. It's the fact that, and this is actually true. So epidemiology is all they've got. And
yeah,
epidemiology is not only not gold standard research, epidemiology is reliant on self-reporting. And
yeah,
it's reliant on annual or semi-annual surveys.
yeah.
Well,
And
I know this because I
food
was part of
questionnaires.
the American Nurses survey that came out like every year. And they would send us these questionnaires, and they're so vague, and they're so like, it's like you have to sit there, and unless you're doing a daily food journal, there's no way that you could possibly know what your intake
No,
actually is.
that's it.
There's no way that you could actually track. I mean, it's like I know a lot of nurses who smoke, and we used to go out every night when we got off a second shift to go to the bar, and of course, it's like I'm not going to say that I didn't drink, because I did, but it's like if
Yeah.
you asked me how many rum and cokes I drank in a year, I wouldn't be able to tell you.
Yeah.
So I mean,
Yeah.
but that's the
How
kind
many
of thing that
cups of
they're
steak,
asking.
How many cups of steak have you eaten this year? Cups, or something like that,
Right.
the weirdest units and stuff like that.
And it just doesn't, and people don't eat like that. They never have. So these epidemiological studies that vegans are relying on to show the so-called health benefits of veganism are based on a complete and total fraud, because those statistics cannot be accurate by any stretch of the imagination. That's not how you use statistics,
Yeah.
because you're dealing with living organisms who are as fickle as the day is long, and they're never going to be able to quantify what their actual intake is.
Yeah.
And so, and even with, medical professionals like nurses, it's like we're court mandated reporters, and
Yeah.
we're told from day one, the first day you show up for a nursing education course, they're telling you that you need to cover your ass, that your reporting has to be as accurate can
Yeah, for
be,
sure.
because someday you may get your ass dragged into court, and if you don't have all your I's dotted and your T's crossed, well, then there's a very good chance you'll lose your license. And that's a great
Yeah.
fear for
Yeah, because
many medical professionals.
all crappy doctors know it's not actually what you did to the patients, what you charted, because
Yeah, it's what you charted, and that's the
the
thing, is
worst
that
doctors are the best
you
charters.
have these nurses who may be the best recorders that there are. It's like when we have a trauma, one of us ends up being secretary. That secretary is responsible for writing down everything that happens during that trauma treatment. Same thing with
Yeah.
surgery, same thing with end of life care. And so if you are a bad recorder, then you're going to pay for it later. The best recorder couldn't possibly quantify their dietary intake for an entire year. It's not possible.
No.
Unless you're writing it down
There's so
every
many
single day at every
variables.
single meal. You can't.
Like, first of all, the vegans will sometimes use vegetarian studies, which is not vegan. The vegan studies that are better than the standard American diet. Okay,
Yeah.
And then after that, I've seen somewhere it's like vegans, and then after they categorize it as meat eaters.
Right.
What the hell is a meat eater? The guy who's eating like hamburgers and pizza pockets and sucking down seed oil everywhere and drinking beers and snorting coke, like, so again, and those studies. See, the thing with epidemiological and associative studies is, well, I'm not going to do a study on that because I don't want to know the answer to that.
Well,
but I'm going to do another study. Yeah.
Let's look at it from this perspective too. Okay, so we can talk about what your dietary intake is, and we can put that in an epidemiological survey, and we can say A, B, and C, these things might be correlated. But the fact of the matter is that these people are all coming from very diverse backgrounds. So if I live in California, I'm living in a dry, arid place on a seashore. If I live up in northern Idaho, then I'm living in the Pacific Northwest, and I'm still living in the high desert, but I'm away from the seashore. So not only is my elevation maximized, and because I'm not at sea level, so my cardiovascular system works differently, my blood is thinner, I take in oxygen differently, my diet is going to be completely different than somebody who lives in San Diego. And then you put me over here in Ohio, where I'm setting like 900 feet above sea level, and it's so humid here. Like right now it's raining. It's so humid here all the time that even if I keep the wood burners in my house, because I have 3 of them, and I have, you know, 1 upstairs, I have 2 downstairs, even
Yeah.
if I keep them going 24 hours a day, I'm still going to have mold in my house at the end of the winter, and I'm still going to have to clean my house up in the spring. So my air quality is going to be different than the person in San Diego living in the city, different than me living, you know, up in Valley County in Idaho, surrounded by dry, arid forest, as it is from me here.
Mm-hmm.
None of that crap is taken into account in these epidemiological surveys.
Yeah.
Not the time I go to bed, not the time I wake up in the morning, not whether I wake up with an alarm clock or with the sun. Like, none of that stuff figures in. Only your supposed intake. And you cannot possibly record that accurately. It's
Yeah.
not going to happen. So all of that study crap that they bring out is all based on a farce, because
Mm-hmm.
those statistics have no relevance in real life. And so until we can get to the point where, you know, I have real big problems with Sean Baker. But
Yeah.
the fact of the matter is that he, you know, he is an orthopedic surgeon. He does know his shit. He is trying to do something. I'm not exactly sure what, but, you know, they are trying to get people onto a carnivore diet, and they are trying to get them to accurately self-report on what's been going on with them and how
Yeah.
they're healing a wide variety of illnesses and diseases.
Yeah.
And if they can
Like,
manage to make that into anything that is, you know, can be considered a bona fide survey
mm-hmm.
over a long period of time, then we might be getting somewhere as far as real collective nutritional information. But until we get to that point, I don't believe anything anybody says, because, you know, when I started this out and I came back to the fields, I was 418 pounds eating a garden grown diet
Mm-hmm.
and felt like shit. And then I lost almost 100 pounds on a water fast.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, the following 3 or 4 months that I did the challenge diet, and let me just say, you know, it's like when I came to the point where I started adding in vegetables after the beef and the fish, every single thing I ate, I reacted to. But
Mm-hmm.
here's the thing. Up
Yeah.
until 2017, I was ending up in the hospital at least once or twice a month, having to get the anaphylactic protocol because I was
Ooh.
eating fruits and vegetables. I was taking epinephrine almost every day. I was maxed out on Solumedrol.
Oh crap.
I was
That's not good.
maxed out on prednisone for over 15 years of my life, which is what got me to 418 pounds and wrecked
I was
my
gonna say
body to this
prednisone
day.
is, yeah.
Oh, it was killer. And I had a Mayo PCP who was sitting there telling me, he says, well, I can't titrate you off this shit because you've been on it too long. And I said, well, if you're not going to do it, then I am, because I can't be on, I'm going to have a heart attack. I'm
No,
going to leave
that's,
my kids
yeah.
orphaned if you don't get me off this shit.
Yeah.
And the funniest part about it is that, you know, it took me 5 months to get myself off the prednisone. And yet I haven't been hospitalized since May of 2017.
Mm-hmm.
And
See,
that,
like,
and I attribute that, you know, after
go ahead.
15
Sorry.
years of being in and out of my own emergency room, I haven't been hospitalized once since 2017. And people don't take into account the fact that I was actually doing what the USDA, what the American Heart Association, what the American Diabetes Association said was the optimal human diet. And
Yeah.
now I'm eating like people ate in 1900, and I have not been hospitalized. I haven't been sick one time
Mm-hmm.
since 2017. I have
It's funny.
not had a sinus infection. I don't have joint pain anymore. I lost more than half my body weight. You know,
That's
the
amazing.
fact of the matter is that just going back to doing what my great grandparents were doing,
Mm-hmm.
I managed to get myself out of what was going to end up being a lethal situation.
Deadly for sure.
And so until you can show me the evidence where you can say all of these diseases I undid with a vegan diet and was able to actually maintain myself in a way that didn't cause depression, that didn't cause brain fog, that didn't cause, I mean, it's like I wouldn't have had my last kid if I had actually been on a vegan diet. You know, it's like
when
who today gets pregnant when they're 49?
Yeah,
Nobody.
No, that's it. No,
so,
exactly.
I mean, and this is the thing. Everybody has these inflammatory issues. They have these issues with infertility and mental illness, and all we have to do is look at society at large and see that this is not working.
Yeah, I'm listening. My son wants the keys.
So, but yeah, no, I actually have come to see that, especially after Joel Salatin said that he's got billionaires who are coming to him who are recognizing the fact that there's a shit hits the fan incident that's going to come within the next 20 years, and we have no idea when it will really be here.
Mm-hmm.
But they need to know how to grow their own food. They need to understand that they have to be self-sufficient, and they have to get themselves out of these situations if they want to live. Well, but then why are you foisting this death diet on everybody else?
Yeah.
Well, it's because it's all about money, and it's all about control of who survives.
Yeah, and they know it's not an optimal diet anyway.
You know, I know that I don't want my family in the middle of that mess. I am not going back to a city for anything.
Yeah.
And, you know, I have a lot of people now who are coming to me, and it's not just me. You know, I live in a county with 24,000. You're like, what?
Oh, sorry.
Well, I live in a county with 24,000 people and about 3 million cows.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah.
It's not. And so we have people who are coming from the cities who want to buy cattle, and it's like, come on over.
Yeah. When I was doing keto and stuff like that, basically my cheat stuff was berries. But when I eat berries, like that's why I stay away from carbs, because I can't moderate. I'll eat like a trough.
I'm still here.
Like, yeah, you know those big bags there of frozen berries? That's usually what I get. And every single time I binge on those berries for 2 days, because I'll go through the big bag, my back is locked. I'm like walking around like this. They're like, I can't even, because I have a spinal stenosis and stuff like that, and so it flares up. That's where I'm vulnerable. And I told Michelle, I said, I'm not crazy every single time. And like, because I'll go like, you know, a month without having berries, and then once in a while I'll be like, oh, okay, I want some berries. I'll eat the whole damn bag. And every single time my wife recognized at one point, I'm like, oh, my back. And she's like, you had your trough of berries. And I was like, yeah, there really is defense mechanisms and stuff like that that inflame the crap out of you, even with berries.
Oh, I tell. Well, and one of my kids asked me for chicken and I never make this anymore, but he asked me for chicken and dumplings a few weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
And so I went ahead. I roasted up 2 of the chickens that I had in the freezer, and then I like put it all in the Dutch oven. And this is all I did. I dipped my finger into the gravy to taste it to make sure it was spiced right, and I broke out in hives.
Jeez.
And it only took like an hour. So there was probably in like, you know, it's a 14 quart Dutch oven, and there was probably like maybe 4 heaping tablespoons of flour in it. And it's my flour. Mm-hmm. It's flour that I grew, that I milled. And so I know it's not, you know, crap, but the fact of the matter is that my body no longer tolerates plant foods.
Well, that's it. You get a tolerance over years and years of your life, but then when you do an exclusion diet, and then you actually feel great, and then you try and reintroduce stuff, that's the whole point. It's beneficial. And you know, me, like you said, I don't need research studies. Just historically, it's like, sorry, we didn't have fortified foods and we didn't have supplements, so veganism didn't exist,
No, we
and
didn't.
that's the end of the story for me. Then you have Weston A. Price that
Well,
is looking at,
yeah,
while we're starting to consume the seed oils, the big Crisco, marketing thing, and then after we start reducing
right.
fat, so let's reduce the animal fat. And because we did that, well, we have to add
Yeah.
sugar. And then the little fat
Yep.
that you will have, let's make sure it's not animal fat and it's seed oil. Meanwhile, like, we're getting sicker and sicker.
Right.
And you can just go like to the 1850s or something, just prior to the 20th century. And it's like, we were eating meat, we were eating bacon, we were eating eggs, table cream, all of that stuff, and we weren't dying. So guys, it's not that. Like, I don't need studies. I don't need
Well,
to be
and
going through,
we
these.
don't even have to go back that far. And that was the thing. When my nephew first brought the whole militant vegan thing to my attention, it was through a video from Canada by some chick in Hamilton, Ontario.
Okay.
And she's an actress. She's not even a farm kid. And she did this, what was it? Dairy is Scary. That was the video. And Jonathan sends me this video and he says, "Is any of this true?" And I watched, I was so mad watching this. I was like, first of all, no, it's not true. And here's all the inaccuracies. And I asked him, I said, "Have you ever heard the term rape rack before?" And he says, "No." And I said, "Do you know where it comes from?" And he says, "No." And I said, "It came from some crazy asshole who was doing these horrible experiments on rhesus monkeys at the University of Wisconsin-Madison back in the 1950s. And he was literally strapping down these poor monkeys onto these tables so that they could literally be violated because he wanted to see how they treated their babies." And I said, "That's not what we do with cattle. Like a stock shoot is not a rape rack." And so, and of course, Jonathan grew up in town, and so he didn't see, the daily life on the farm. So he had no way to actually know what this was actually like. I had to explain to him why we use AI and why I actually prefer AI, because he's never seen a bull trample a heifer. Just this last year, I bought a 790-pound Berkshire pig with the intention of using him as a sire. And I bought him from a really great farm over here in Maryland, Red Dirt Farms. They're really good. They have beautiful show animals. And this particular pig, they didn't want to show him anymore because he was getting judged out of championships because he was too long. Well, 790-pound Berkshire is about 500 pounds more than the standard Berkshire that you take to slaughter. So we literally couldn't find a gilt that I could match him with that he wasn't going to kill. So, and he was unhappy because I kept having to keep him separated because he was crushing other pigs. And he didn't mean to. It wasn't his fault. He's just a huge pig. And so we went ahead and we had one of the AI guys come out, and we got him ejaculated, and we got 15 straws of semen out of him that are all frozen and ready to go. And of course, I can take a 200-pound gilt and I can breed her with his semen without endangering her life. The same is true of cattle. The same is true of goats. Because when you look at these sires, the fact of the matter is that they're rough and they're excited and they don't have human emotions. So they're not looking out for the best interest of the females that they're mounting. And there are accidents. It's like, as it is in the United States alone, about 100 people a year are trampled to death by bulls. That's just a fact of farm life. And so you need to recognize the fact that these are dangerous animals. And the reason we do AI is not so that we can torture cows. It's so that we can keep our cattle safe and healthy, and so that we can actually get the benefit of controlled breeding that doesn't end up leading to lame and injured animals that die, or, because cattle are polyestrous, we don't end up with cattle that are being bred too close to their last gestation cycle and ending up getting broken down and ending up with milk fever.
Mm.
Those are
What's
horrible
milk
things.
fever?
Huh?
What's milk fever?
Basically what happens is a cow, usually it's a first or second year heifer, will go ahead and she'll go through a normal gestation cycle, and then she'll calve. And because of the birth, she ends up being completely depleted of her calcium, and she ends up with what's called milk fever. And you have to give her boluses of calcium and a couple of other medications to save her life, because what happens is their heart stops, because of course calcium actually keeps your heart going.
Yeah.
And so we give them a gastric lavage, and we give them a bolus pill. Like, it's a pill that's about 3 inches long, and we shove it down their throats, and we give them an IV. And so it's a very intense thing to have an animal go down with milk fever, because you've got maybe an hour to save them. And if you miss that golden hour, then you're probably going to end up with a dead cow. So, and it doesn't happen often, but it happens often enough that we're always prepared for it. We always have, every farm has a vet fridge in the basement or in the barn where we keep all our medications, and we're always stocked for that. Because we don't want to lose our animals. We don't want our animals in pain. Milk fever is actually painful. These animals go down and they have contractures and they have seizures and all kinds of nasty shit. And you don't want to see your animals go down. It's highly stressful to see an animal in pain. And, the idea that is brought up by videos like that, farmers and ranchers don't care about their animals, and that we're all abusive, psychotic maniacs who, have a bloodlust, is just so absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah.
And we care about our animals.
Yeah.
We all have favorites.
Sure. Let me show you this. I just want to show you one of the studies on cholesterol. I remember I had read this in the book. Where is it? Feeding. This one here, this publication. Do you see it? Did it pop up okay? The share screen?
Yeah, let me see if I can turn this around so I can actually read it. How do I make this thing full screen?
Well, I can read it. I just want to make sure, because sometimes I don't share screen correctly.
No.
Anyways, this was a study, and it says 100 years ago.
Atherosclerosis. Oh, the lipid hypothesis. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So 100 years ago, this guy published his seminal observations that rabbits, mind you, rabbits are herbivores, right? So that rabbits fed a diet with only high cholesterol developed basically atherosclerosis in association with greatly elevated blood cholesterol. So it's like, so you're trying to prove atherosclerosis by feeding dietary cholesterol to an herbivore. See, this is the science.
Doesn't eat that way,
Yeah, it's like probably there's a reason, So it's just so whack that you can justify anything you want. Here's Garland Farms.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
There you go. Hey, Garland.
Oh, hi. Can you hear me?
Hi, JD.
Hey, Darla Llama.
Oh, did you change cameras, or you have a better camera than usual? Looks very nice, the quality. No, it's the same.
Same camera. I changed rooms. Maybe it's the lighting.
Yeah. You look better looking today,
Thank you.
That's so mean.
Yeah, I look real handsome.
Oh. Yeah.
He usually looks pretty handsome. It's a good thing.
Yep.
So, but no, when you can show me how animals are badly treated in a real way, in a real way, then maybe I might care about that kind of thing. But when Jonathan first showed me that, and I first realized that there were people out there who were spreading this kind of nonsense around, that's when I got involved in this. And honestly, I don't have time to do research on it. You know, I'll watch these videos when I'm out in the barn and stuff. But honestly, I don't know how anyone has that much energy to be going after these people, because they're insane.
I don't know. Like JD's been doing this. Like that's all he had. I mean, been doing it, these anti-vegan videos.
So impressive.
I am so aggressive.
It's so
I don't know how
impressive.
you take the time, JD. Okay, let's listen to this and then respond. Like you're a stronger man person than me, because I'm just getting back again into the getting drawn into this, and I'm aggressive. And I'm like, God, I gotta go run back to my Christian videos before I start just like swearing and telling them to F off and be like,
well, yeah.
Oh,
the bad thing about
really
that,
frustrating.
The bad thing about that, though, and this is, you know, it's like, I don't mind swearing. I swear like a sailor, and that's the truth. But when every other word is F this, you know,
yeah,
F your hat, F your cat, then it's gone too far. That one live stream that JD posted, I was absolutely dumbfounded because, well, first of all, I was so glad that my kids had gone to bed before I listened to this, because the guy that you know up there in Canada who started in on JD and started swearing a blue streak, and then you guys started arguing about Christianity. And I was just sitting there going, this is Patrick? The biggest waste of energy. What is wrong?
Yes.
And
Patrick,
I was just sitting there thinking, I think so. All I could think was Robert's rules of order need to be enforced in these kinds of conversations, because this has gotten, well, JD posted the video, I think it was yesterday or the day before, with the kid who went unhinged and started screaming at him and calling him a liar. And I'm just sitting here thinking, with this kind of behavior, how can you get anybody to listen to you? Yeah. And it's like, and he puts up with a lot more than I would, because I would just be like, I'm going to bed. As it is, I'm sitting up here in a field during a thunderstorm. And, you know,
for some reason, for
it's
me,
a half hour past my bedtime.
Yeah.
Why would I want to subject myself to that?
I think there's a delay. For me, like, I can sit there like just no reaction when it comes to diss my Christianity. I'm like, whatever. I was for 20 years a non-believer. I understand, like, no problem. But veganism, the fact that I know it's this huge deception being pushed by global, you know, elites, and that now these vegans, these aren't just like vegans that are idiots and eating their they're influencing even more that narrative. So that's what it gets me aggressive, because this isn't just like pettiness. Oh, you know, vegans are like, no, this is going to be horrible if this is pushed on humanity, this lie, and then after we'll lose. You know, I mean, you're aware of the WEF, so that's why I'm getting aggressive, because people are actually buying into this. Like, you literally have like just regular omnivores, like, oh, I don't eat red meat anymore. And I understand
that. At the same, okay, but at the same time, look at it from this perspective. Okay, so the live stream that JD tried to do with the debate with these last two people.
Yeah.
So the proposition was actually very clear. And when you get into word games, when you can't define definitions with a dictionary anymore, because everybody wants to change definitions of very common words, and they've developed their own community language about what this is truly the basic gist of cult apologetics, is that every cult has its own specialized community language. Well, what is hypocrisy? If a lack of knowledge of factual information is hypocrisy, then that's just stupid, because that basically means that you're asserting that somebody else is holding you morally accountable for a lack of knowledge, and that's not possible.
Yeah.
And so when you lose your temper over those kinds of disagreements, then you lose the argument altogether, because the minute you lose your emotional stability in a conversation like that, well, then the other person thinks that they've won some big argument, and they haven't won anything. All they've done is shown that they can push your buttons.
Yeah.
So nobody gets anything out of that kind of conversation except for frustration.
No.
And I don't give a shit you swear when you're saying this kind of stuff, and when you're having these kinds of disagreements, but at the same time, don't sit there and try to make it like, you know what you don't know, and therefore the other person is a liar. The minute you call somebody a liar, I stop listening to you.
Well, here's
That's
one of
just
my biggest problems with the last two debates is this. I said, look, I can screen share here, so we could do a debate on StreamYard here, and
Right.
I'm the moderator. And first of all, what I would do is allow screen sharing. 'Cause, for example, the stupid cecum, like, no, I just Googled it. Gorillas don't have cecums, Garland. You're a
Then you
fucking
spelled it wrong.
And he starts going crazy. And it's like, yeah, I know. It'd be really simple if Garth
And I
could be
sat
like,
there and thought,
pop it up.
you spelled it wrong.
Yeah. But like the whole thing is that Garland, I would never go on any debate anymore where you can't share screen, because at this point it's like he's calling you a liar and you have no defense. You're like, yes, they do have a cecum. No, they don't. I'm looking it up. You don't think I can Google? And it's like,
Well,
but that would stop right away if while he's doing that. And I mean, I don't understand.
I'm not sure that you cannot screen share. I don't think that that's actually been confirmed that they don't allow it. In fact,
no, I just mean, why don't they? Like I would insist, man.
Well,
like,
I think I have actually seen it happen on some of the debates that have been on that channel. But I do know that they will. They have asked every time whenever I would cite a specific source for me to give them the link to the source so that they could share that in the comments section.
Yeah,
and then everyone can open that, and then everyone can open that and see it, visually see it.
Yeah. Well, that's
more effective though.
Actually, I don't know that it's more effective, Jason, because like when you and I are streaming together, I'm able to use the trackpad on my laptop, which allows me to do this motion and zoom. But when you screen share with me, you don't ever zoom the page, so I can't see the text. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's the problem we had earlier.
Well, something because people aren't going to be popping up, the links and stuff like that. Even I don't know. Then there must be a way to zoom or something. Well, also what you can do is if you're going into a debate, you can do a PowerPoint presentation and you can zoom as much as you want your slides to focus in on stuff. So as you're talking, you got it popped up. I'm saying it as a viewer, like the dumbest thing about the cecum, like, he's literally grilling you that gorillas don't have a cecum. But as far as a viewer's looking, they're like, yeah, is Garland full of crap about the cecum?
That's also the secondary issue about these conversations, is the fact that they're not conversations. That was a shouting match with a mentally unhinged person. And here's the thing. JD was actually right in the way he did this, because he was trying to roll this back. It's like, first of all, let's finish with this one first issue first. Like, let's finish with gorillas. And the guy was just totally emotionally incontinent on this, because he didn't want to finish the discussion about gorillas because it didn't go with his agenda. He wanted to wash that away and move on to his next point. and
not
that's
only
part
that,
of
he
the
starts
problem.
like, "Oh, Garland, yeah, I just want to come on
I don't
here
want to
and
upset
reason
you.
with you to see if you can come up with a if we can come to a consensus on the subject." And then after,
Right.
and he's like, "Oh, Garland, I don't mean to upset you." That's what
But he was upset, and
Freedom
but
Grower.
that's
Freedom Grower did that to me. Oh, okay, like, and he played me. It played me, and I lost on that one because I did played into his game. But the guy's like talking to JD after JD's been talking for like 2 hours, and now this guy's like coming in. He's supposed to just be commenting or something like that, and then after he starts, "Oh yeah, we just want to talk," and then before you know it, he's screaming at JD, and it's like.
JD.
He was so arrogant. I felt like smacking him. It was like,
JD, when you were in high school, were you an FFA student?
Yes.
So you did have
I was.
forensics in like first and second ag. So there, right there is part of the problem, because when we took vocational agriculture classes in FFA, we were actually trained in forensics. That was part of our program, was to be trained in public speaking so that we could actually engage as business people in agriculture. And so that whole issue of staying on task with the first subject until it's completed, like, that explains so much to not only the person that you're discussing the issue with, but also to the people who are sitting back listening. If you're not willing to actually hear the entire argument before you lose your shit and just go off the reservation, then nobody learns anything. It just becomes this, shouting match.
yeah.
And
His plan was to do that.
his
Play it all cool, and then all of
yeah,
a sudden, like, go off on JD about a Seacom, which
and
is
all it does is make you look crazy. And it's like, with behavior like that, who really wants to follow you when you appear deranged? And
yeah. But the issue is that all the vegans are deranged. So he was just trying to
to a
impress
certain extent, yes, but
his community.
yeah, but some of them are more balanced than others, and some of them can hold it together better than others.
I mean, did
It
you
just
ever see Zetetic Warrior on one of my earlier live streams when I started live streaming?
No.
He called my wife a whore 5 times, just right
Oh yeah.
down all sorts of stuff like that. But what happened? He went back to his community and he was a hero.
Yeah.
So it's so for these
And
vegans, it's like, oh yeah, you got him. Oh yeah,
but of course,
okay,
for people who are sitting on the fence, they look at
normal
that and
people.
they go, that's ridiculous. But
Yeah.
then I actually agree with JD on this point, and he started doing this about a year ago. And it's one of the
Okay.
reasons why I haven't actually gone very far. A couple of years ago, I actually bought a 12-acre farm that has basically been left to, nature, with the intention of teaching people how to homestead. And I've kind of not done anything about it because I believe that JD is right. I'm still cleaning up this property and stuff. But I think that where he's going on his track, that we need not to talk about veganism. We need to be talking about the corporate moves that are being made to redirect society into this funnel of death. Is basically the only way I can think of it. Is the main focus. That's the thing that we have to get at. We need to stop having these ridiculous roundabout discussions with individual vegans about what's going on. We need to concentrate on the fact that, less than 1% of America is still farming. And we've got maybe 2 million people who are trying to homestead on top of that. But the rest of society is being lulled into the sense of security with supermarkets that cannot possibly sustain them if the corporations start torching our food supply. which is exactly why I think, you know, if you're not raising livestock, you are livestock because you are dependent on those lovely little CAFOs they call a supermarket. If you don't get your food local, if you don't know who your growers are and who your community is, then you're screwed if anything happens. If the grid goes down, if the stock market goes down, like, you're truly screwed. And so when JD points to all of these hundreds and hundreds of corporations that are involved in this stuff, people need to pay attention to that, because I think that he is not just right, he's critically correct.
Yeah,
And
it's just crazy how
really
propagandized the public is. You speak about the majority of this stuff, and I'll get responses like, "Well, I believe in science," and you're like, "So then, what are you going to sit there and pile them up with studies like that?" A lot of people are just like, they'll listen to the headlines and they see expert says, study says, and I have a guy who's lean, plays tennis, and
but
he's
you
about
don't
to retire, and he has a high cholesterol now. So he said, "Yeah, my doctor put me on a statin, you know." And I told the guy, I was like, "Dude, man," I said, "Screw cholesterol." I said, do not start on the statins. You're lean, you're healthy, you don't smoke. Like, I go, it has full of side effects and stuff like that. And anyways, I'm sure he's taking. He goes, "Well, I trust the science." So I was like, "All right, fine." So
cannot trust science because, you know, it's like, I have a bachelor of science degree. There's no such thing as trusting science. There's no such thing as believing in science, because science is always evolving. And the whole point of science is to disprove your last hypothesis. That's the whole point.
And it's not supposed to be the only truth. You know what I mean? It's like, oh no, like, we can't use common sense. We can't look back historically. We can't, like, you know, it's like, no, what's the study? Show me the study, you know? Show me the study, Garland. Hey, Garland, show me the study. You're a liar. You know?
But you nailed it. That was a great impression.
I couldn't see his face, but that's what I could see.
I think I have PTSD. You gave me a flashback there.
I think everybody was tired, I think, at the end of that debate, because I was still listening, and it didn't even piss me off that much when I listened. And then when I listened again, I was like, you know, because it was long. At one point, you know, we went through, and it was just like, yeah, okay. And then I re-listened, and I was like, what a slimy guy, man. I'd have to look at Avi again too, but the other one specifically is the one I resaw, and I was like, what a pompous.
Avi has contacted me through the Crucible, and he wants to debate.
Oh, that should be fun.
Yeah. Is it going to be a different premise, or still the same premise, or what?
What he's trying to do is he's trying to hedge me into a proposition where the wording is very much like the wording on the Our World in Data literature, where all of the
soy,
where they should use the word soybean, they use the word soy. And so he's using that word soy, and he wants the entire debate to revolve around this soy, and he wants to win by like a technicality where, you know, if he can prove that X amount of soy is going to livestock without differentiating between soybean oil, soybean meal, soybeans, he wants to play that calories, you know, there's more calories going here, and you know, when he's adding up those calories, he's actually counting the calories in the cellulose, which is absolutely ridiculous, right? We can't even, but the gorillas don't have cecums. You know, you just talking to these vegans, they're just, they would be, you would think that they're just like victims themselves if they weren't constructing these walls of lies. And once you catch them constructing these walls of lies, you know that they're not victims themselves. They're actually victimizing others. They're actually like misanthropes trying to harm when you catch them building these walls of lies. Otherwise, why would they do that? I mean, you will run into real, legitimate, sincere animal lovers that are vegans, and and some of them you'll see in the comments section of these debates where they listen to all of the death and destruction caused by crop agriculture, and they're like, they'll type in there, I've been vegan for 8 years and I never knew any of this. And oh my God, I'm going to quit veganism tomorrow. I'm going to get some fish and eggs. I can't continue this lie. So there are people that are wrapped up in veganism that are sincere. They're just, waiting for that opportunity to learn something about the dark side of crop agriculture. But then these others that you catch, especially these high profile influencers that are scientifically engineering their propaganda in order to deceive and mislead.
Yeah. Like when I was looking at the debates there on evolution and stuff like that, it was like you had an opening statement, a good amount of time for the opening statement, then the other person had their opening statement, and then after the other person had the floor, and it was a back and forth. It has to be timed and stuff. I don't know. It's like give you 5 minutes to do your spiel, and then mute the other one, give the other one time, and write down the questions and objections and stuff like that, and just allows everyone to speak uninterrupted, and that's it, And it's like I understand, like the whole reason that we were talking about it initially, we were talking about debates and stuff, it was like, well, veganism, there's a lot to debate, the nutrition, the ethics, the morality, the environment, all that. So it's just too much, right? But trying to break down the premise into like this such a tight box, just it breaks down the conversation, and stuff like that. And I'm not impressed, I don't really like that kind of stuff. I'd rather say, here's the topic, let them speak uninterrupted, let him speak uninterrupted, and then back and forth, just 5 minutes, and just let it go that way. It's like if the other one wants to say, well, you can't say that. Well, it doesn't matter. You got to listen to him, and the viewers will care. I never studied philosophy. I know these guys are just like debate goons, that's all they do. Vegan gains. I remember when I was watching that stuff, and it's just a bunch of word garbage and trying to sound smart and like, oh, it's like, yeah, but there's no true conversation. It's kind of like, you can't say that. No, we have to stick to the premise. And it's like, no, I understand. We wanted to talk about the environmental effects. Well, we didn't have to nail it down to, such a fine-tuned thing where, like, they're like, oh, well, we're here to debate your premise. We're not here to debate me. And it's like, what are you talking about? I don't know. Things have to be adjusted, because I can't watch another one of these. It was a pure waste of time. It's like they didn't give you time to spiel your lies. At least let him get all the lies out, and then you can debunk it. Yeah, go ahead. Connection's bad. I can't hear you. I think her connection's not good.
One of the guys who was in Darwin, well, there's, oh shoot. Well,
I can hear you now. That's it. I had enough of her. I kicked her out. They'll come back. I'll just post the link. I probably have maybe another 15 minutes because.
Yeah, and my daughter's asking me to take her to her grandmother's house, so I'm going to have to. I was hoping that you'd be on longer. I'd go and run and come back. But
Well, it's just I think you know where your work, and plus you're earlier. So for me, it's like prime time would be, you know, around 6 o'clock, 6 to 8, 6 to 9. But then you're not done your work. It's still daytime.
Yeah, it's earlier here, and I have to make sure that the animals get
Yeah, exactly.
are in the right place at,
Yeah.
during the nighttime because of predators and so forth.
No, understood. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's why it's a little bit harder and stuff like that. You know what? My battery is actually very low. I didn't plug it in, and JD has to go
Yep.
drive his daughter, and I said I'd only be on for an hour and a half. It's 2.5 hours. We're RB,
Yeah,
check
and
in the
we're an
private
hour
chat.
past my bedtime.
Yeah, that's it. So we can cut it out. But RB, check in the private chat. I wrote my email so that we can like stay in contact and maybe set up like you know, like, hey, do you want to do this on Thursday at this time? You know, and try and organize stuff maybe that we can work around having more conversations, because I really want to pick your brain with a lot of stuff. I think, did she leave already? Because I wanted her to get my damn email in the private chat. I don't know if she left or she.
I thought in the beginning we were speaking to Darla Lama, but who was that? That was I think I know who that was.
Who? At the start?
One of my subscribers.
Let me check comments. You mean it's somewhere here?
Oh, resting bitch face.
Well, that's her.
Yeah,
It's who you're talking to.
Well, that's why I said I think it's one of my
That's
subscribers.
me.
Oh, I had the impression you guys probably knew each other.
I am one of his.
Yeah, that's what I said
No,
at the
and
start. I was like,
actually
resting
did,
bitch face. Yeah.
If you give me a way to find you, see, it's actually easier to get a hold of me on the phone.
Yeah.
And I did actually message JD my phone number. If you want me to do the same thing for you, if I know where to get a hold of you, I can do that. I actually have my email.
Do you know? Yeah, but do you know how to get to the private chat? Because like right now there's comments, but if you look at on the right side there, it says comments, banners, brand. Go to private chat.
No, I have no idea.
Because you're on a phone.
So bad with technology.
But you and JD are in communication. You and JD. So JD can give my contacts.
Yeah,
JD,
I'll get y'all hooked up.
Yeah, Messenger is. I find I like Messenger. All right, then.
I sent him a message on Messenger with my phone number. I actually have him on my email, on my private email, and I'll send him another email through that with my phone number, and he can.
And you're in Ohio.
Yeah, I just think that. Yeah, I'm in Eastern Ohio. It's
so she's very close to the train. She's very close to the train derailment.
Yeah, we were talking about that before. Yeah.
I'm 27 miles by road from, like, if I take the and they're not really highways, but they're county roads. If I take the county road up to East Palestine, is 27 miles by road.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah, it's true.
Now the scariest thing about this is I live on one of the last clean waterways in Ohio.
Yeah, that's scary and upsetting.
Mm-hmm.
Say again?
That's scary and upsetting.
And it's actually been very traumatic, because I know several people now personally who have lost all or most of their livestock, and they're looking at having to, like, either just plant cover crops for the next few years, claim insurance for the loss of their livestock, and hope that they can get back to something, later on after the shitstorm settles. But it's like we've gotten literally no government support for and I mean, FEMA should have been here like a month ago. And we've
Meanwhile,
seen
like
nothing.
they're
And like I
shipping
was telling
billions.
Jason earlier,
You know, let's support
shipping billions
Ukraine.
over
Let's
to
send all that
Ukraine,
money
and
to Ukraine.
and what people don't understand about Ukraine is that this is a tactical issue. You
It's
know,
none of the states'
we want
business.
Ukraine obliterated, and the whole purpose of that is to engage NATO in a strike on Russia. And all of this, you know, it's like blowing up their pipeline. We wanted to destabilize Eastern Europe economically. We wanted them to be dependent on us for oil and gas for their heat. And it's like, you know, destroying that pipeline was great for American politics, only in the sense that it makes the rich richer because they're the ones who are holding all the oil.
Yeah, it does
It's the
nothing for
same way that they're
Americans.
trying to clear out the Utica Shale. No, it does not absolutely nothing to Americans. Like, they want us off the land where the oil is, which I think, really and honestly, after listening to everybody this last month, that's the real reason they let this train derailment just.
Well, I heard
mean,
there was
it's just
cobalt under your feet over there.
Absolutely true.
Yeah, she was
Isn't
talking
that
about
awesome?
all the
And they lied.
resources.
They said, yeah, they said that, you know, they said that there were 10 cars derailed. This is 150 cars. 26 of them are you know, holding all of these highly toxic, highly carcinogenic, highly lethal, incendiary gases and chemicals and stuff. And it's like, it's just ridiculous. We have gotten no support from FEMA. We're sitting on top of the Utica Shale, which is one of the richest mineral reserves and oil reserves in the world, and they want to run us all off the land. And the petroleum companies know this. You know, we got Encino Energy, we got Williamson's, we've got Chevron, BP running all over the place with all their teams. You know, we have Texans up here who work for the petroleum industry and are very good at what they do. That's great, but they want to have nothing to do with our local communities. They're just here to make money and leave. And we're literally sitting on top of one of the richest deposits outside of Africa in the world. And
okay, guys, my
that's how you do
daughter's
it.
giving me the stinky eye, so
Oh.
I'm gonna have to get going.
You better.
You know what, guys? Let's hook up together again. Yeah, Arby, you're always welcome.
It'd be
just
easier
like JD.
for me if this was about an hour earlier. I mean, it'll get easier as the sun, you know, starts shifting. But it's easier for me about an hour earlier because I usually am in bed by 9 o'clock.
Yeah, no, understood. Yeah, we'll try and do this earlier, or but yeah, I want you on here more because you got a lot to say and new perspective and stuff like that. So it's fun not to hear me babbling the same thing over and over again. All right, guys, I'm booting you out.
Well,
I'm getting lost here.
Okay.
All right. Have a good night, guys.
All right.
You
Next
too.
time, guys. See ya.
Good night.
Good night. Stream. All right, guys. So as usual, the title of this live stream is Ketogenic Live Stream Questions and Answers. Most of the time, the title that I put on has nothing to do. So once this is published, I'm going to have to relabel this. Yep. All right. I'm out of here. God bless. Take care. Don't go vegan. Eat animal food. Peace.